Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so today I have a one topic to talk and the remaining topic to just to explain whatever we are done it. Give me a second. So, so we all be aware JavaScript and higher order functions.
The order function, I'm not very clear about it.
Okay, so you can say higher order function is the function itself that receives another function as argument and returns the output or return a function as output. You could say array.map, right?
Yeah.
And array.filter, array.find index,
Okay,
everything is
okay.
higher order function.
Okay. Yeah. So we
Okay.
know about it, but we don't know that it is higher order comp.
Higher order,
Yeah.
yes. So if you say an higher order function is a, you can say it's a function, right? So that receive a function as argument and returns and a function as output or something, right? So likewise, you use the sorting and you give the data and give the callback function that does something on top of the actual data, right? So you could imagine it is the same concept, but it is not something like a API in React. Okay, it's just a pattern, or else you can say it's a design pattern or common usage pattern or whatever you call it, right? But they are not integral part of a React. It's just that kind of a standard usage, right? A writing standard. Okay. So what is why these things are really useful? Okay, you could imagine a situation where you have a model window, right? In model window, what is basically a model window? Generally, it adds some kind of a transparent grayish background, and then it blocks the UI, right?
Yeah.
Okay, imagine you wanted to add that feature to one of your pop-up. Imagine, right? And
Okay.
on click of the model window, we have to close the model window. You could imagine, right? Just click it, open the model window. If you click outside the model window, that means you imagine, right, what I'm saying. A model window and the model, a window is a DOM. Behind the scene there is a gray area is there, right? That is a model, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Right. So imagine if you want to give that functionality to two three components, you have to write the same code, right? So what is meant by same code? So definitely there should be a state to say that model is true, and you write on click event and you say on click of that you listen the on click event and you set it to false, so that model will go off,
Yeah.
right? So that is
Right.
what understood what is the state, right? So we write a state as a thing. The state is when the state is changed, it will re-render. So your state will get changed when you click on the button. Okay, so imagine this is one kind of an example for a model. Imagine there is another example. Let's say you have a loading mask, right? In a sensor, you use loading mask everywhere, but
Yeah.
in order to use in multiple places, definitely you have to again write the same code, right? So
Yeah.
to answer all the questions, this comes, okay, higher order components. So basically what it does, it is a function, first of all, right, that receive a component, okay, and that adds some things into the receiving component. So if that is not so clear, imagine you have a button, let's say very simple, okay, and imagine I have some standard beautifier, okay.
Okay, well, just
Whenever
a
I
minute.
click,
Or 1 minute. Abhilash is also coming in.
okay,
Hello.
hey Abhilash is there.
Hello. Abhilash, can you hear
Yeah,
us?
I think his mic is on, and I think he's
Yeah,
connecting from his mobile, is it?
I think so.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, yeah, I think.
Welcome.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, you
Good
got up.
man.
We started the class.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we were planning to, he was planning to start routing today, but Instead of that, he is explaining as the higher order component, HOC.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yes.
routing actually has something called with router and all the stuff. So
mhm.
so you need to understand higher order components. So it won't be easy to catch up without the HOCs, right?
Yep.
So just wanted to give the higher order components the look, and then I thought of taking it to routing, because routing needs a separate session. I don't want to mix the things, so that's why.
Mhm.
Okay, so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sets the fundamental idea, as I said, right? So it is a function. It will receive a component as an input. Okay, and
Mm.
and what it does basically is either you can return a functional component as HOCs or class-based component as SOCs. Okay, now question comes, what is mean by you can return a functional component as SOCs and class as a blah 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 blah, right? Okay, let
Mm.
me take you into a small example. You remember we have added a button component uh, earlier in our UI. We have something called add, right? Subs,
Uh-huh.
all the stuff, right? So
Right.
this is very much in straightforward that we are receiving what is the text to be shown, add or remove, and the click event which we are listening to from the parent component, right? So we are
Mm.
just using this somewhere in the wrapper. I think that wrapper is where we are using the wrapper lifecycle. Lifecycle? Yeah, not a lifecycle. Okay. Okay, now imagine you wanted to have some class. Okay, you
Mm.
don't want to.
Click count.js.
Sorry, bro.
Yes.
Okay.
Click count.
No. Click count. Click count is something different. That is, I prepared for this. I think. Wait a minute. Something I have class component. Yeah, here you see, right? So we are
Mm.
adding some method. So any it's things like state and all, you can have it in this component, and this is just one second. One second.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, fine. So we talked about why we are breaking the components individual pieces is because to maintainability, right? So that's why we are making the component into single individual pieces that takes care of it work only. So we
Mm.
don't want to write everything into single block and get into complexity. So that's why we divided this button component to separate one. Okay. Now
Mm.
imagine, as I said, if you want to add things like a loading mask, or if you want to add things like a model,
Mm.
definitely you might end up writing here only, right? Or else
Mm.
you might be end up writing in the button class only. Okay.
Mm.
Okay, you understood,
Mm.
right? So imagine you wanted to let's say, or else imagine you say you have a two set of classes. When you pass a props as a default, it has to be grayed out. You could imagine,
Mm.
right? If you don't
Mm.
pass the props as a disabled, it will be like a red one.
Okay.
Still, you can write a code here itself. How you can write a properties is that you can define a styles here. Const
Mm.
styles you can write, right? And
Mm.
you can pass an object in that, and you can
Mm.
say background color as a one second,
Great. Great or something. Yeah.
background color like this only we have to pass. Let's say
Mm. Mm.
we can pass this red, and color equal to some blue, you say. Okay,
Mm.
so let's take this up, active or whatever, simply we define it. Okay, so now how we can pass this style here is we can pass style equal to you can say styles dot active,
Mm.
right? See, these things are changed, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
what if, see, already we told we wanted to minimize the coding. Okay, if you remember in ESLint or somewhere, you cannot write a function is more than 7 lines.
Mm.
Okay, ESLint will throw an error. It's not a
7
Java.
lines or 14 lines? Abhilash, 14 lines, right?
7 lines is it?
14. Yes.
14 is
Ah,
it? But
yeah, it's
ESLint
14.
I'm
Yeah.
using it is saying 7. It's not letting me to write more than 7 lines. It's
What
like
is
Okay.
it's like a sonar and stuff, right? What we're talking about.
Yeah, so
So
yeah.
yeah, so So this is again another complexity, right? So we again have to come and change it here. Imagine I'm going to use this same concept in multiple places. What I can do is I can borrow this JavaScript related style definition into some places, and I can create HOCs. Okay. Now all that said, let's see how the HOCs looks like. Okay. Let me take you to the one of the functional based HOCs. Okay. See, as I said, it is a function that receives a component as an input, and you can pass any other argument also, right? And then that returns another function or returns some values or something. Okay. Okay, so what you see here, I'm passing a component. If you see the button, right, how I'm calling HOCF, right? So HOCF is nothing but this one. I'm importing this class, importing this component and wrapping this component around a curly brace, parenthesis, right?
Okay.
And one first argument is your component, the second argument is your props, you can say. Okay. So what HOC does is it receives the input and adds the necessary things wherever it is required. So I passed as a test as an input, so it creates one div and puts the things inside that. Okay. So imagine instead of calling a button, I'm exporting a button with HOCF, right? Since I pass the class as a test, if you see the UI, you could see it is wrapped with the test div. You see?
Okay. Okay.
Right. Imagine
Right.
our model also something like that only, right? Our model also is a
Right.
wrapper only for us, right?
Yes.
So this is the very, very basic idea behind HOCs, because why we want to understand HOC is everywhere in a React. Okay, so that is the one example which HOC is. Let me show you another example. Let's say this one. Okay. So imagine I'm creating a header component. Okay. So header component, I'm passing a props for on click and some styles I'm passing and all that stuff. Okay. Imagine if you see whenever you click on something, you want to count the number of time it is clicked, you could say. Okay. So how do you achieve that? Okay. So either you can write a constructor here, right? And you can write a states here, right? And you can set a counter here and all that stuff. You understood what I said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, imagine you wanted to borrow this functionality, especially this counting functionality, right? So what you can do is you can create an HOCs like what I did. So now I'm using, instead of a functional based HOCs, I'm using a class based HOCs. You see, I'm returning a class, where in HOCF, I'm not returning class, it's just things.
It's a function, right?
It's a function, right?
Yeah.
So if you see here, now what you can do here, you can set a state here. You can set a this dot state. If you see, if I said this dot state is equal to, let's say I'll set counter dot 0, right? And this on click, what I'll do it, this dot set state of what I do is counter this dot state dot counter +1. Okay, now let me go to header component. Instead of exporting simply as a component, let us use the wrapper, right? Now this is the thing. Okay, let's see. Let me log it out. Let's say let us log out. Log, right? Console.log this dot state dot counter. What happened? It's not assigned, never used. Okay, once again, this dot state counter. Click on bind this. Okay, once again. Something to do with. Is it coming here? Did I wrap it?
No, it's not right.
No, I wrapped it. Whether I used it here in app.js? Yeah, I used it in app.js. Wrapper I used. Header component I used a wrapper. This is a wrapper. So wrapper dash extends the click count. Okay, so rapid count was just a minute. Seconds.
Can I check the console verbose levels? Is it
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
logging?
Why log is there? Log it's coming, but what for happen?
Yeah, check on that over here. Default all.
Are you binding the on-click event, bro?
Sorry, bro.
Are you binding the on-click event?
Yeah. On click. Here it is. Actually, it's coming, but why it is not stopping? I don't know. See, this is coming, but for some reason this is not happening. Okay, set title box. This is on click. This is dot on click. On click is there. Why it's not happening? Let's see
Can
something.
you change the case for on-click?
Sorry, bro.
Can you change the case for on-click?
Come again. Sorry,
Lash, we are not
change
able to hear it because it's very dull. Your voice is very dull.
bro. Whether we need to write so many things. Why it's coming here? No, it's writing for some reason now. Why? See, this is writing an event right now.
Uh,
Let me remove this debugger. I don't know something. See, you see, right? We are listening the clicky, right?
mm,
Similarly, you can write the state what I said there. Okay, imagine you can write state this dot state is equal to, let's say, counter. As I said, this is nevertheless to be a counter. You could say the model window shown true or false like that, right?
mm.
This dot set state, then counter, then this dot state dot counter plus one. Let's log this console dot counter. Let's see what it is logging. That logs state is not getting logged for some reason. Oh, something is a problem with this. Okay, binding this state is null. How come? Whether I'm using some wrong stuff? What did you say? Check this. Okay. There is something problem with the state stuff. Is it because of that?
We have an assigned state to this, right? This stored state.
That implicitly takes it, no problem. See, that's what we did outside, right? So you mean to say this one, right?
Yeah.
We did that. Let me see. Something fundamentally is going.
Say Pandya, you didn't say anything.
Yeah. Just a minute. What? There's something. It's so glad to do this. I just saved it, but still it is not happening. Second, not that, not this. Class component. We don't have to bind this. Binding becomes a problem. Why we have to bind this? Does it become a problem with the binding? Yeah, there is a problem with the binding.
Interesting.
It works. You see, it works, right?
Mm.
Maybe there is some wrong binding had happened. So that is the idea. So is it clear or confused a bit?
It's clear.
Okay, cool. So Joe, how about you? So for that,
Yes,
to make it much more clear, I have done some other things also. One sample example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys see, just see this. Okay. So what we are doing is we are creating a one component called stock list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have some state, internal state as a stocks with
Mm-hmm.
ID props and all the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a method called tab row, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which checks it is an array. Then that returns an table row.
Mm-hmm.
Table row is another component. It just creates a TRs, right? And sets the value, takes the props, then sets the ID and name. So you could imagine first cell and second cell, right? First cell and second cell. So that's what the table row does, right? Okay. Now coming to here, and then what we are doing, we are creating some container and we are creating some table and creating some header. Then we are entering the tab. Okay. Now imagine we have something called user list. Okay. There is no fundamental difference here other than there may be some different data, here may be some different data, right? But the presentation wise, this uses a table row and that uses a table row, and this is the same concept, that uses the same concept, right? Now you can borrow whatever you want to the higher order component. Okay.
Okay.
So what we at the very minimum level we can do is we'll create one higher order component that will be once again okay, what I'm doing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to app.js. App.js uses HOCs. Okay, so where did I do that? Okay, HOC. See, this is one simple thing I did. Okay, what we did is we are receiving an input as a component because it is no higher order component as a function that receives the input as a component or maybe some other arguments also along with it, right? I'm
Right.
creating a class based component out of it and assigning a data to the state,
Okay.
right? And I'm passing a data as an input to it. So now this part of assigning the state is going to be get removed from the stock list. I no longer use the state here. I borrowed that state thing to another one. Even you can borrow anything to higher order component. Okay.
Okay.
So you can minimize your code, rewriting as much as possible using the HOCs. And also, that is not the main agenda for HOCs. HOCs are main reason for adding extra features on top of your existing component. Very small example is that you wanted to have some standard styles to your button, right? Instead of writing the classes and button and all the stuff, say again the component again and again, you could pass your button to a HOC that wraps all the classes and everything for you to use it, right? So you often in future, maybe upcoming session or whatever, you often going to see a tag like this instead of simply using export default header component, export default app, export default, etc. You will be seeing like wrapping this, okay? Because to set some idea, right? React router has something called with router, okay? Okay, I'll show you how it looks like. See what they are doing. It is a function, right? You see, this is a component, right? You forget about the prop types. Prop types, like a prop types is a checking, like whether it is the object input or they're passing some input, right? See, imagine in your browser you have all these, right? Match, location, history, window.location, window.history, window.match, location.history, all the stuff.
Yeah.
So those things will be given by with router. So when you pass your component into the with router adds all these to your component so that you can accept using a props. Okay. So this is one small example. And also if you go to the React Redux, 1 second. React Redux map state to props and all the stuff. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Okay, React connect React. You see this one, and instead of sometimes you're wrapping your component using like HOCs what you create. This is one of the HOCs created by Redux.
Okay.
Okay. So at the end, you export is like export default connect of this, and then at the end you will pass your component as a wrapper. So your HOC is going to be available everywhere, and you should know the name and you should know the purpose, right? So now if you read what is higher order component, it will be clear, I believe. Higher order component is a technique for reusing component logic, because generic certain logics we have to keep it separate aside so that can be handled and managed very easily. So that's why they are, and it is not part of a React API, because if it is a React API, you have some method and standards and argument and all the stuff. Because here Redux also using a different way of this one, and router uses a different way of this one. Okay, because why I'm saying a different way, here you see you are passing input like this, right? Click wrapper of component, right? And you can pass some extra arguments like this, right? Some class names, right? This is the one way. But if you use the Redux, what you will do is you will pass the two arguments. One is a state, another one was props. Something like that. Imagine it's not a state and props. Then only you wrap your component. Okay. But if you see the difference, this one is different from this one, right?
Right.
So that means it is not a standard in a way. It is a pattern in which you can wrap your component to add some functionality to on top of it.
Right.
Okay. So that means you cannot expect higher order components will be in some standard like this. It can be in some other standard also. But at the end, it receives an input. See, that's what I shown. Connect is from the React router that itself is a function, and that returns another function that receives your wrapped component. That is your header component. Right? So that's all about your HOCs. Okay. So then there are few topics which I maybe wanted to run through from W3 schools itself. right? That is a React events, right? So this
Okay.
already we talked about it, right? Whenever you wanted to bind an event to a component,
Hmm. The default is
you
not.
cannot use this one.
Hmm.
You have to use this one.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So any mouse event or browser event, keyboard event, or whatever you are writing, right? You
Hmm.
always have to capitalize the first word after the on, most of the
Okay.
cases, right? So
Hmm.
then only it will work. Okay, so this is the one thing I've told. And then there is a React Forms. React Forms is just like the forms only, but it's just that they'll you can add. See, sometimes you want to validate a form, you will be saving everything into one state variable, right? Username, password, and all of that. A
Hmm.
state like this, right? And then you validate them. And there is something called conditional rendering also, because these things I don't want to cover. Like when you say, because React is all about state and props, right?
Hmm.
So when you pass some prop saying that render this and don't render the other one, we can
Hmm.
render it conditionally. That means you can write any JavaScript code anywhere in the React by using the curly, if you are writing in the written statement,
Hmm. Right.
right?
Yes.
Because this is all about writing your HTML. But
Hmm.
if you wanted to include a variable or include a conditional or whatever, it has to be enclosed with a curly. And
Right.
any checks you wanted to do that, you can do it like this,
Hmm.
right? See,
Hmm.
you understood, right? You can see, for example, you can avoid rendering this. How you can
Hmm.
avoid rendering is like, you can receive one props from here and say whether the props is received, whether show label, let's say show label question mark, then
Hmm.
you add this. If not, you remove that. So how you can do is, let's take this an example, right? Simply,
Mhm.
simply I'll take this an example for conditional rendering. Imagine, okay, so let us take one thing. Did I copy this properly? Yeah. So now what they do is, header is showing. See, this is showing error because it is not defined. Okay. Let's
Hmm.
say I'll say const header false. Okay. Now the error won't come. Why it is saying error? Unexpected token. Okay, not here, because that is not the place to do that. This is the place to do that. Okay, so now what you can do is, you can say conditionally, if there is a header they say, then you enter this, or else you return simply a null. That's all. So
Okay.
now what it does is, it won't append this into your DOM, it will just return a null out of it. So no DOM for this. So you can write anything conditional like this.
Hmm.
So you often see this
Within the
also.
curly bracket.
Sorry.
Within the curly brackets, you can write all your scripts.
Yes. So curly is major. If you remove, it will throw an error, by the way. It won't recognize, because
Hmm.
this is blindly for HTML,
Hmm.
right? If you wanted to include a JavaScript conditional, you want to include this stuff,
Yeah. Right, yeah.
right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
that's the one thing I wanted to tell. And other things, because we already know this all the stuff, right? On like on submit, and then getting the things, see, we are getting a age, and we are getting a, see, even you can set a state like this also. If you can assign name property into your input field like this, that can directly map to your state, this one, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you can set a state like this also.
Okay. So this is similar to our ext, like where you can update record. It is the form is attached to a ext record, right?
Yeah, but
Hmm.
as I told you already, it is not a two-way,
Hmm. Yeah, it is not true. Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And the validation I don't wanted to cover, because that we all aware, like checking the numbers, this one, and writing some blah 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 error message and all the stuff, you know.
Hmm.
So that's why I
Also, like
discussed.
specific to those components, right? Forms. Yeah.
Yeah, see, there is nothing called React Forms as such. Okay,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
talks about things around forms, but there is one concept called controlled versus uncontrolled in React.
Mm-hmm. What does it
Okay.
mean?
It just mean that what do you say? Because how to say that? Because other components won't react to outside event. I mean, inputs are as its own event, right? To listen to.
No, I didn't
Actually,
know.
I'll cover this. Actually, this is something confusing topic that I'll cover it separately. But this is the one thing we may have to understand with the React with respect to form.
Okay.
I'll just cover that.
So in your
So
project, you are using a lot of forms?
no. See, my projects, everything is there. We are just improving and adding a new components. See,
Okay.
it's very rare that you will be writing forms and all. If you are writing a website, new website, you may end up creating a forms by yourself, and you have to write a validation and all that. Okay,
Mm.
but majority of the cases, I told already, there are plenty of UI libraries for the React. You can use it.
Mm.
You can simply import it and you can add it. All
So
this stuff.
this material UI is the most common use, right? I think most of the projects I have seen that they use material UI.
Yeah. So it has everything. Your tabs and your
Data
pop-up.
grid, table and all you have? Table, okay.
Data table and all won't be there.
It won't be there?
It won't be there. Data table and all it won't be there. It's just that some buttons, some buttons, some layouting and all the stuff. But there is nothing called complete a grid stuff.
Mm.
This is there here, but I haven't used.
No, so for example, if I have to integrate a WebEx component here, how do you do that? If I have to,
No,
uh,
that is, I don't think so. There is a straightforward way.
uh
We uh, because you have to write the thing that is read by React.
that
Let me
means the
see.
WebEx component has to support React.
Yeah, WebEx has support for the React.
See, so what you're saying is we can't render our WebEx table into a React DOM.
Your current WebEx, what we are doing is we are using a vanilla, right?
Uh, right.
Vanilla straightforward, I don't think so. You can do. See, they are creating a component here, right? See, you remember other day I was telling.
Uh-huh.
I think you can do this. I think you can do this. But you have to add it into our index.html and all the stuff. Packaging we have to see.
Mm-hmm.
You can write like this. You can render a DOM, and then once the component is mounted, it is ready. You can
Uh,
create a view, and then when the component is destroyed, you can say
right.
this is
Okay.
there and all the stuff.
Yeah, you can using this mount we can maybe render into that object
Yeah, so
DOM.
this is the after renderer. I mean, the DOM is box ready stuff.
Right. Right.
You can do that. But the thing I was talking is packaging.
Packaging is, yeah, understand.
Right, packaging maybe we have to try with the webpack only. I haven't think about that way. I mean, or think like a vanilla stuff and integrate into that. That I may have to explore it, but
Okay,
you
so
can you guys can
I've
try.
told you, right? We have taken a course for Webpack also that is available in my Udemy.
Yeah, I'll go through that. I'll go through that. But you guys can try creating a simple project and include all your WebEx related into
PC charts and Webix and PC grid and all,
everything,
right?
PC
Yeah.
and everything,
Mm.
and you can try upon.
Yeah. That is
Majority of
something.
the cases, they nowadays they are less projecting towards a class-based component.
Mm.
The current version, I mean, after a 16 and 15 and above, they are
Mm.
projecting towards a functional.
Functional. So what is the reason? You didn't tell me the reason why they are moving towards functional.
No, there is, but still,
Uh,
uh, there is no perfect reason I could tell.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know why they are moving. Now,
Mm.
what they did is they provided a support, all the support what is there in this one, but still some support is are not covered. What kind of support is? I'll get the answer why they are moving.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, I think we had the same discussion. I had the same question.
yeah,
If
let
most of
me
the
look
things are
at.
available in class component, why are they concentrating? Because why are they trying to get many things like the hooks and all, right? Last time we discovered the hooks. Using
Yeah,
hooks, you can make the functional component like a class component. So the question was why not use class itself rather than providing hooks in functions?
Yeah, but I maybe if I'm not read, I didn't read properly. But what I
Okay.
could say is,
Mm.
class-based component is maybe
Mm.
inheriting the properties and method from the class. This one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that way, right?
Mm.
This is my
Mm.
personal thing. I haven't read anything,
Uh-huh.
and you don't need all that stuff. Imagine you
If I don't
have
inherit, no, if you don't inherit, it will still be the same, right? It's
no,
not mandatory that you have to
no, no,
extend
no,
from
no,
a
no,
component,
no,
right?
no, 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 no. That's what the problem. See, imagine ext how it does. If you're creating an instance of a button, so do you think button won't call all the listeners it attach it to a default one? It will do,
To do.
but it will listen to this whatever you have written.
Mm.
But still, internally it listens to this, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you have a life cycle of events around 5 to 6 to 8 events, right? All the life cycle event it will run through.
Okay, tell me, Praveen. So in React, can I have a plain class without any extents?
Line class without any extents. I think you can't.
Why? Because it is ES5, right? See, you only if if it's a class component, you need to extend from component. Otherwise, you can have a plain class, right?
Yeah, but how do you attach the life cycle?
Yeah, don't. I know that's what I'm saying. It is not a component. It is just a
Then
plain class.
that's why, right? That's why functional. If you don't talk about class, you go with a function. If you talk about
No,
a
no,
class,
no, no. That is functional component. That is plain functions, right? Those
yeah,
are those are ES5 functions, right?
yes.
Right. Now, when we talk about class component, I'm not talking about class component. Can I use create a class called as A? Let's say student. Can I create a class called as student, and I create objects of students? Not a UI component.
Okay, I understand. I understand. I think custom class in React. I haven't custom components in React. I haven't done that. But tutorial 3.1.
Uh-huh.
Okay, one second.
Uh,
Let me see what they're doing. They're talking, creating a function only here. Not this. Ah, I think no one talked about like that. Adding a class name. Cut
no, we
custom.
can directly try in your code itself, right? It'll work or not.
Uh,
Create a class outside this. Outside this.
okay.
Now outside this, in this class only, in this file itself, in this header component,
Mm.
create a class plus, let's say let's call
Mhm.
student,
Okay.
yeah, constructor,
Mhm.
yeah, some data members, one method,
Mm.
let's say name and age.
Okay. Uh, okay. So it will become.
I think some standard you have to follow, right? Student by is equal, okay, get name. Okay.
But I haven't used it like this, so that's why I'm just thinking.
Now, for example, if I have to create a helper class, I can create like this, and I can put all my business logic in this, right? For example, yeah, all the business logic I can move into a separate class, and I can use those classes everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Now,
that's
can you create also? What is the issue here? What is the why student is
no, it's just a warning. It's not.
warning? Okay, now create an object of this and display it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If you run this, what will happen? No, okay, run.
Okay, one second. where we are running. It's coming.
It's coming, right? That means it is possible to create a class without any extents. Plain ES6.
Yeah, yeah.
So only if you need a component, that is a visual component. Only if you need a visual component, you need to extend it from component. Otherwise, it will continue to work as a normal normal object, object-oriented class.
Yeah, yeah. Look like.
Okay,
I'm
right.
having
Yeah.
tried.
So I can write all my business logics inside this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about something like your utility stuff, right?
Not utility is a mixin which I want to use. This is actually the proper non let's say
Okay, let us
non UI classes, non UI classes.
okay, let us say custom class, ES6 class we call it,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
But we have to export this. I haven't tried how to export it.
I think it should be the same way. I think I'm not sure. I'm not used.
Export default because I didn't know, because without knowing I don't,
Mm.
is it
Yeah,
because
export and see
I'll export the instance. What is that?
instance. I don't think you can export because can you export a default export an instance?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can only
yeah,
you
let
can
us
only
try.
export a blueprint, right? I'm not
Let,
sure.
let,
I'm saying.
I haven't tried this. Let us try.
Mm.
ES6. ES6 classes from, what is that?
There is some error.
Who's recognized need to enter the component started with the name and uppercase letter. I
I
think
think you have to put that into the curly brackets, right? No.
no. It is saying something different. Tag component 2 is recognized, not a component 2. I'm called, I mounted. Once again, ES6, right? That is this is some different error.
Okay.
So, because that's not related to this. Yeah, it is getting called. But why it is not logged? That's question. Okay, why? Why did I go there?
Mounted. I got called render.
Is it something? What is the name I given? Yes, class. Hello, ES6. Is there hello ES6? Cannot flush object when data is rendering. There is something is happening. This is I am not able to get hold of it.
No, but at least we know that something we can do in that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that instance cannot be done here.
Yeah, it should be outside. Anyway, okay.
Let me take it to some functional component. Where? Is it a functional component? Functional component. I used a counter. ES6 ES6 class. Where's that? HOCX ES6. Okay. It is getting called. Actually. Is it used somewhere? It is not getting called, is it? It is getting called, but it is not logging it out. Is it?
I think
Hello. No, it is not logging. This is something,
Yeah, it is not logging, I think.
right?
Yeah.
But we are able to write, but we have to see.
Yeah, you have to see what is the where should it be used and how to use it.
Maybe the question to you, why functional? This, see, 5 reasons not to use ES6 class in React. Why?
Okay, yeah, that will be good. Yeah. Okay. Inconsistent nodes.
Constructor. No, this is something different, right? See, these all are extending this stuff only. React dot create class. No mixing support. Pure component. Inconsistent rendering. Inconsistent definition. Prop type. Component will mount.
Oh, so what they're suggesting is to use create class instead of defining the ES5, ES6 classes, right?
Yeah, but why they're using component will mount?
Hmm.
Component is, you see, you don't have to use a component at all, right?
Yeah, we don't have to use a component, so that's the
They're
intention.
just plain stuff we are looking at.
Yeah.
So this create class is something related to again React only. React function was a class based. Actually, even one more reason is there why they are doing class and functional is that in
Mm-hmm.
in functional based component you can write component will mount and unmount and all in one places,
Mm-hmm.
and also you can write many component logic. I mean, you can write multiple use effect, right?
In functional, right?
Functional. So and if you remember use effect, uh, use effect works in a way. If you want to render the first time the component renders, see, this you remember, right? Use effect. If you
Mm.
use a use effect like this, you have to pass a function, right?
Mm.
And that receives an argument as a empty array. Okay,
Mm.
this is one standard. Imagine when your component want to render something, you will write this. Okay, and
Mm.
there is some state value. If there is a state change, you want to render this. If you want to listen to multiple state change, you want to, so imagine now, out of this three state, one state is getting changed, this execution will happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? This happens one time. See, you could see use effect, it's like render first time,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Like getting the user list. Okay,
Mm.
get user, then you will do this. That means they clicked on the particular user, is the user state you could say, right? Now
Mm.
this will render. Okay,
Mm.
now there is another way. You want to execute every time, so you don't have to pass an argument. So if you don't pass the third argument, I mean the second argument as a comma array brackets, right? This will run every time. Now coming to the question to you is, how do you achieve this in class based? Because you have only one place called component did mount and component did update, right?
Right? Mm.
So this is component did mount. This execute only once, right?
Yeah.
And this is component did update on the state change,
Component did update. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But I don't think so there is equivalent for this. This is like, this won't run every time in a class base. Because if you remember the life cycle, let me take to the life cycle, right? First, a constructor will be called, component will mount, render, and component it mount. This is before render. This is render after box ready.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you have a check whether to update a component or whether a component will update, render, did update, and all the stuff. Right? Even to get the clear answer, let me read something and I come back. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So two things you asked, right? Let me note it down. I'll have it in my note so that I'll have it. I class y function class. And one more thing before I set the expectation for the topic this month, right? When React is started with, they started with the class. Okay.
Right. That you had mentioned the last time. Yeah.
Okay. Functional component has no support for life cycle, has no support for a state, or no support for there are some topic called context. So many things are there. Okay. So the people who started with the React, they started with the class based. Okay. So when React started providing all the features there in a class, they provided in the functional. So people started migrating to the functional because functional is lightweighted. I mean, you write only the logic over there. I mean, functional presentation and all the logic, but still it receives the props from the parent component and it will have its own state. Because if you remember, functional component cannot have its own state, right?
Yes.
General strategy 15 and lower cases, functional component cannot maintain the state for its own. It just receives the input. See, what I'm saying is, if you take the button component, right? It's a plain example for your presentational component. See, there is no state here, right? It just receives the input. It does its work. But imagine if you wanted to add some local state to it, right? And you don't want to maintain, because there is a big agenda revolves around your Redux, is that instead of maintaining state in each component level, we move all the state into one global level. Okay. So that will be the final end. Now,
just like our, like you can say, like our Windows registry, right? Where everything will be.
Yeah. Because the heart of your React application is your state, and your state is a heart. So that like that beats every time according to.
Actually, I mean, for all the dynamic page, right? Wherever there has to be persistence, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So they maintain a global store, and they read the global store value through the Redux. See, imagine. So here, what we are talking is, we are maintaining some state. We said, right, that stock list stuff. When I said a stock list, so you have a state here, right?
Right.
And to avoid that, you are using HOCs, right? And to avoid HOCs also, sometimes what they'll do is they move all the state value into one place. That will become your Redux.
Okay.
But nothing is absolute here. Like you cannot say HOC is not required, right? You need HOCs.
So it's all it's combination of all, right? Actually,
Yes,
the right good application to make use of all the three, or all of this.
Yes, it is just you have to decide whether you want to borrow the C.
So basically, it depends on the architecture of your application, the design of your application. How do you want to?
You can destructure as much as possible.
Yes.
Okay. See, you take one chart as an example. Okay. If you think, let's take one bar chart. So now tell me, I think Sijo was also there, as a React level, how do you componentize that? Okay. So you have a legend. I say legend is a one component to me, because whatever I wanted to change in the legend, I'll change it in the legend component.
Yes.
I'll make axis as a one component. So whatever I wanted to make a change in axis, I'll make it in an axis one. Okay. So you can destructure your component to any singular modular level, so that that particular component will take care of its work. So now you are reducing effort of writing 100 lines of code into 10 lines of code, so that you are segregating out into your component.
Right. So actually, to be honest, this is actually not a React concept, right? It's actually the general programming principle, right? For example, even in PC charts, we are doing the same thing.
That's what.
Legends, axis, with the even the shapes and all of they're all individual components. So
Yes.
this is actually a programming principle rather than a React. No,
Yeah.
this is
So
not a React invention, but I'm saying.
there, see, React gives you flexibility to write reusable component. That's all React gives,
Yes.
and that maintains the rendering process and all the thing, because that is the
Yeah.
art.
Those things are all managed. Only thing is that in our code we have to do all these things.
Yes, you have to do all these things. That's
Yes.
what
Yes.
you have to do.
Right.
Maybe you guys can not see. The major part is React tells that you reduce your code as much as possible. See,
Hmm.
even for me, sometimes I wanted to borrow this text into something, I can do that, but it
Hmm.
is me have to decide whether I have to do that.
Okay, Praveen, so we have two questions to answer, right? You have taken one question. Or
Okay, I have one
what is
question.
not?
Okay,
Another
fine.
question is why not to use ES5 class, ES6 classes,
Yes, it's classes. And then
and why there is no two-way data binding?
two-way data binding.
Why there is no two-way data binding?
Okay, I
Okay.
think because it is not supporting MVC, I don't know whether they consider that. Let me see that.
Okay.
Let me figure it out. Okay, so that's all for the day. Maybe that's one insight I wanted to give. So always writing a React code is always reducing the code as much as possible and borrowing it to a separate class, because that's where the HOC comes. That is what you have seen. That's where the functional component comes. That's where a class, everything comes. So you cannot write 100 lines of code. Even we practice that also. From everywhere, whatever we write multiple individual piece of code that does one single activity,
Mhm.
because function is for one activity, because we often write multiple things into one function, right?
Right.
So that may be reduced in writing in React.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think I'll stop from here. So definitely I'll have a React router in the next session. So because after understanding this HOCs, router
Mhm.
will be a bit easier to understand, because there is nothing to do with the HOCs with a React router, but also
Mhm.
you have to understand HOCs when you go and see something different.
Mhm.
That's why, because React router, that is a separate package, right? See,
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
of the things you see in React is independent package, okay? And there are added advantages are given by some third parties, like a
Mhm.
routers, Redux, and all the stuff given by third parties. So that React accepts and works on it. Okay, so I think I haven't covered one topic, the CSS topic. Is it required to cover? Because CSS topic here, what we can do is we can write a style like this, right?
Mhm.
And you can specify uh, object as a style like this as a JavaScript object, and then you can create a style sheet like app.css that you can import it like this, right? And you can specify that class name somewhere as a class name, right? There is one more concept called modules. So what basically module does is, in any production site, if you go and see, right, most of the site, what they do is they have some arbitrary classes on the DOM.
So this, so one thing, okay, one more thing is,
Hmm.
when we spoke about this higher order function, right? As you told me that it's a pattern, right? It's a design pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a pattern called as decorator. Okay, so this is actually the concept sometimes we use. Knowingly or unknowingly, we might have used this in our projects, but we don't know that it is. So there's a pattern called as decorator pattern. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is the same thing. Yeah.
I've seen the JavaScript decorator, right?
Yeah, decorator is nothing but you wrap many things
Mm-hmm.
one on top of the other.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher order component, I think it is based on this pattern itself.
Okay. Okay.
So I think, yeah, this is one thing I need to tell everyone. I think we should. There's a site called as Do Factory. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us, whether it be JavaScripters or any language, right? I think all of us should know design patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Design pattern is something that all of us should know. I'll send you the link, the exact link. I'll tell you. That is specifically for JavaScript.
Okay.
Do Factory itself. There is for JavaScript.
This one.
DoFactory.com/JavaScript.
This one, right?
Yeah, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So it has design patterns, see JavaScript patterns. Last one, yeah, last but second. I think that is
Okay.
yeah. So there are creational pattern, architectural pattern. There are many different patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I think, if you know, I think if you look at it, I think many of the things we are already using. Okay. For
Okay.
example, decorator, what we saw, high order function is decorator, and we are also using factory in our project, right? For example, PC charts and PC grid, we are using factories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our event listeners, right? Event listeners,
Mm-hmm.
they are nothing but observers. So many of them we already are using in our project, but only thing is that we don't know the terms, what they are.
Okay.
This will definitely help in creating good code, especially when it comes to the next level that all of us have to go is like architecture, right? We will not be like writing code throughout our lives. So at some stage, all of us will get into the designing the application. So when it comes to that stage, these are some concepts like design pattern is very much. I think this will help all of us in designing the application very well.
Yeah.
So I think all of it, because this is a design pattern is something. I mean, not only the JavaScripters, any programmers should know when if at all they have to reach the next level, that is like architecturing or designing level. I think this is like very important.
Okay. That's
So
nice.
Shija, you also can have a look at this. Okay, let's see Singleton we are also using, right? Singleton we are using adapters.
Yeah. Okay.
Adapters and most of many of the things we are already using in our project, but only thing is that we don't know. See, Facet we are using Facet.
Mm-hmm.
So iterators we are using. Iterators means see the next and previous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many of the things we are using already. Only thing is that we may not know the term. So this will really help us.
Okay. Nice.
So just bookmark this also. Do factory.js. I mean just. Okay, so next week we are going to learn about routing, right? Routes.
Yeah. Next week for sure we have routing.
Okay then.
Okay then. Bye. Take care.
Okay, Praveen, thank you a lot. We'll see you next week. Okay, have a nice weekend.
Thank you, bro.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Thanks for the time.